Hello, everyone.
So they call me a moderator, but let's just be real. Like, this is not a moderating situation. We'll do our best to stay on point.
Sure.
Ehrlich.
How is everybody? Fun injective? Let's inject some energy into the room, you guys. There it is. This is great. It's been pretty dry. It's all great speakers, but a lot of it has sort of been at this level. So we're trying to bring it up a notch.
So TJ, we're going to dive into quite a few things. You've had a diverse career. You've gone through, I feel like you're one of the few people that can relate to not only what blockchain technology is, but also really understand what the entertainment industry is and what some preventative measures are. So in this chat, really, I just want to kind of pick your brain and pull out some of that knowledge of like deficiencies and anything else there. But I think you're probably going to lead in that. So yeah. Let's start it this way. Where you were one of the coronials, right? The coronials, like COVID is when like you dove down the rabbit hole. What drew you to this industry?
Well, I did a show called Silicon Valley. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's it kind of makes fun of you, you know? It's sort of the vibe to that. But yeah, we met the Winklevoss twins. The CFO, I think, was just of Gemini. So I met them on set, and later we ran into them, and we had dinner with them, and I think it was Tyler, maybe it was Cameron, it was probably Tyler, but I think it was
How do you
Cameron.
know which one?
There's a lot of tells. But you know, they said, look, we're working in this thing, Bitcoin, and I said, I've heard of it, and they said, well, you should check it out. And so when they say that, I checked it out, and nobody really orange pilled me. I just fell down the rabbit hole. And so Bitcoin was my first sort of like interaction with the blockchain and learning about blockchain. And I wasn't able to perform during the pandemic for about 7 months. And then I went back to work in Florida where they do not give a shit. So during that time when I wasn't working, I just gave myself like, you know, a master's in blockchain technology and Bitcoin. And as I learned about it, I started to realize how like magical the technology was, but also how it can be applicable in the entertainment industry. And so yeah, that's how all this started. And now I'm an Injective. You guys, isn't this amazing? There's only one bathroom.
That's how it happened.
I think that's so cool.
Well, it's amazing.
We're in a bank.
It is like a bank.
We think.
It's kind of irony, right? It looks like one. Nonetheless, so you dove down the rabbit hole during COVID. You red pilled. You got the Bitcoin injection, right?
Yes.
To be a pun. So what made you feel that this was the future, and where do you think the gap is in terms of just the entertainment industry being able to understand it?
Well, that was when I started realizing I wanted to get involved with. I hosted the main stage at Bitcoin Nashville and then spoke in Vegas. And I started to look around and realize there was nobody in Hollywood or sort of in my realm that cared about any of this. No one spoke about it. Nobody's interested in it. Certainly nobody is passionate about it, which I'm very passionate about it. And so I started to think about cultural adoption. So one of the things that everybody in here has noticed is when they talk about what they do at like a party or with their family, everybody's eyes is like they glaze over. And they don't want to talk to you anymore because they just don't understand it and they don't care about it. And so I think a lot about trying to explain blockchain and just decentralize that concept in general and how to make that more palatable and make it possible for people to understand it and be open to learning about it. Because one problem is I tell people that to understand or learn about Bitcoin or blockchain, you need about 50 hours of study. And it's really hard to get people to study after they've graduated. So it's important for me to figure out how to take an hour or a couple hours to explain something and have people go, that's really interesting. I'd like to learn more about it.
Would you say that it was an easy adoption?
You've got great hair.
Well, thank you. I think there's similarities.
We don't talk about it enough, you know? Look at that hair. This guy's got great hair.
It's the Ehrlich Bachman hair.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
He looks like a real life Ehrlich Bachman, doesn't he? Kind of. I mean, he's not high
Not
right
a terrible
now, but
thing.
yeah.
You know, I'll take it.
Yeah. All right,
Easily
sorry.
the funniest character in the show, so it's a good testament.
Thanks.
So when you got into this, and what do you feel when you're going through this and explaining this to somebody? You said it perfectly. People's eyes glaze over, right? Yeah. So you have a very like your community, your fan base trusts you tremendously. So how do you find the in-between, and how do you find the value in saying this is a technology that's going to change the world without making it feel like you're shilling to your audience? Because that's one thing you've been very delicate about, and also very conservative in terms of, yes, I support the technology, but I support the technology. So when you talk to your audience, or when you're sharing the word of Bitcoin and everything else, what I would like to know is how does that translate into entertainment? Because we've talked about CAA, we've talked about certain deficiencies there where there's a lack of comprehension.
Yeah, I mean, I think that CAA, which is the agency that represents me, they fired a lot of their Web3 team at the end of the bear cycle. So they didn't really understand how those cycles work.
It's like a metaphorical liquidation that happened to them.
I know,
they did it at the wrong time.
But I kind of, I think, you said it was sort of a dirty word, but and I can't talk about this stuff with Bitcoin people. But you guys are, a very different group of people. And I did the first stand-up comedy special that was an NFT. And I learned about Ethereum and have two friends that taught me a lot about Ethereum and that protocol and that layer and what could be built on that. But, when I went to a bunch of my friends like Mark Norman, Shane Gillis, all these people, and I said, you could do a special and have it be on the blockchain, and then you could sell a certain amount, kind of went through what everybody here knows. They all were like, wait, so then other people own it? And I'm like, yeah, and it's verifiable. And they're like, why would you do that? And I explained it, and then they go, that doesn't make any sense. And it's almost like, do you guys feel like this? It's like explaining the internet to people in 2008. You're kind of like, this is already happening. This is going to be so important. It will it'll affect every facet of our lives. And everyone is like, who cares? They don't totally understand how important it is. So I try and sort of break it down and help people understand this is going on, this is going to continue, and there's so much that can be built on this. There's so much potential. And you see it in DeFi. This is not totally my area of expertise, but you see how much is happening and what technological opportunity there is. And then you also see that people, just that concept of decentralization, it's just hard for people to wrap their minds around. It's so opposite of the way that we are taught things should work. And I think that's what's tough, is sort of asking people to reverse course mentally on how the world works. And so to me, it's like, that's why I'm making a movie that's about a Bitcoin heist. So it's a heist movie, but Bitcoin is a focal point. And I think that's what I'm trying to do in a lot of things with the travel series, is sort of have blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, everything sort of be adjacent to the actual project, so that people just sort of listen to it, watch, they're entertained, and then in their minds they're like, oh, that's how this works.
It's a microdosing experience.
Yeah, it's microdosing.
In a legal way.
With the way you're dressed is very on brand, as far as the metaphor goes. So that's kind of, part of the idea, but it's also about learning. Like, I've enjoyed being here so much because there's so much learning going on and everybody wants to learn. Yep. But we talked about this a little bit, and I talked about it on CoinDesk. I think that there's a problem, which is that all of us are in an echo chamber, right? It's so fun to be here together because it's a community, and we all know about this. We're all passionate about it. We all are interested in it. We all make a living from it. But once you step outside of the echo chamber, nobody knows what we're talking about, and they don't know why we think it's so important. And so a big thing that I'm trying to encourage people to do also is think about, how can I explain this or talk about this in a way that people are open to learning about it. And that's the only way we're going to get what I'm after, which is mass cultural adoption. Is people understanding that this is a part of culture, not just this like little pocket of weird, technical, the jargon, I don't understand why we would need this. So I really encourage people to try and step outside of the echo chamber, even though I think there is this feeling of like clubhouse sort of mentality where it's like, well, we're in the know. We're the insiders and you guys are the outsiders. And yet we still want people to come in and be a part of mass adoption. And so I think that that's, to me, that's a dichotomy that is interesting, and we have to sort of figure that out and get past this sort of echo chamber where we're just talking to each other, you know, in the bottom of a bank. Is this a bank?
In a basement.
Okay, well then quit talking about it. Go ahead.
You know, we talked earlier, I always find it ironic that in an environment that has trustless technology, the one thing that lacks most tends to be trust.
Yeah.
You know, people tend to, at this stage, you know, you see the various launches of the onomatopoeias, of the Haktuas that launch, and people remember the things that scare them.
I still hold a lot of the Haktua.
I bet you do.
I'm modeling that. It's coming back.
It is.
I love the laughs in this room are like this. Oh, except when I make fun of you. Then you're like, that is like us. Go ahead, sorry.
No, what it is that there's people remember the things that give them fear or the things that give them hope. So they're going to remember, oh, I know somebody who bought a house because of Bitcoin. I know somebody that lost their house because of Bitcoin.
On the metaphorical cover of any magazine talking about all this is SBF and FTX. And if you know a little bit more, Celsius. And then the Hawk to it, which wasn't even her fault. It was somebody, but it's the Doja coin. And it's these things. We love Doja. We love those guys. But it's the issue is that publicity facing, we're constantly like given challenges and obstacles where everyone says, well, I guess it is just for criminals. You can say, I'm not even a Bitcoin, I'm talking about DeFi, I'm talking about whatever, the blockchain, I'm a VC for this. And you still have everybody going, I heard that. I heard that's all fake money and only so that's an obstacle that I think we just need to accept, that we're going to be trying to overcome that for a long time. And I'm also trying to understand how to say to people, yes, but FTX wasn't, because everybody's worried that this is just some financial shell game. Everybody, see, that guy's cool. He came and he goes, it is, you know? Fuck you. So, and look, you're dressed like a crypto bro. It's perfect. It's just, hey, what's that? You got me laughs? Wow, I got a heckler in the bottom of a bank. No, I get the laughs. You just get a bad rap. I think you're a really good guy. Seriously. Can we get him out of here? But yeah, so it's, you know, people think of this, when they think of this, they think of the bad things that have come of it. And so we need to kind of push to like, just say, yes, that's part of it, but this is what it actually is. And that's a difficult thing to do when you're asking for mass adoption. And so it's just something that we should think about, you know, and be a part of.
I agree. I think that that's the element where if somebody's going to try to think about, you know, I want to tie back. Stigmas take time to change. Right? So the way that people perceive an environment or a brand, let's just call it, it takes time, a lot of time, and a lot of repetition and a lot of consistency. I think one of the greatest changes that a lot of people don't speak about in terms of a change is we know of the digital reserve. We know the source of a lot of those funds. I think one of the biggest landmark moments of changing the stigma against cryptocurrency was the freedom of Ross. You know, basically in that respect, right? So what do you feel in terms of entertainment and so forth? Do you feel that there's a world where entertainment can help to correct the stigma? Because as you were talking about microdosing of the technology, not anything else, as we were talking about that, you know, there was something very similar in Silicon Valley in the later episodes where they started dropping the word blockchain and they started talking about Pied Piper coin and all of these things, right? So very similar to what we were referring. Do you think there's a way that brand, like, what do you think is going to be needed to get that catalyst of change? Like, because at that, I told you that story about the Fijian tuna fish, right? How the IoT sensor, once it got to a certain temperature, stamped on chain and held a party accountable. And that was my light bulb moment to understand blockchain, right? What do you think is a good opportunity to get the masses to understand that this isn't just a digital Ponzi scheme, just being the key word, as much as it is a revolutionary change that eventually, even before we know it, we're all going to be using it agnostically?
Yeah, I think it's just awareness and wanting to bring people in, and so a lot of times it is just learning metaphors and ways of speaking about this in a way that is like palatable, to use that word a fifth time, to the general public, and to continue to build things like what's happening here, which is reputable companies in blockchain technologies that I think are going to lift everything up, and so more people see that and less people see the sort of downside of, just less FTX and more Injective, I guess is what I would say.
I think we could all use a little less of FTX, that's for sure. And we can all use more of these trusted brands coming into the space. Having a TJ Miller come in and actually endorse not the concept, but the technology itself. We need trusted figures that aren't here just to shill a coin. I always say that greed is the thing that destroys this industry. Everybody wants to get rich quick, and when you're pursuing that is when devastation takes place. And TJ, I just want to say you've done a phenomenal job being able to support this industry without necessarily doing it with any other motive than supporting the technology. So I thank you and I applaud you for that. And we need to bring more of you in this space.
And this is a great time for me to announce that I've got TJ Coin. See, I got to laugh.
Do not pump fund that. Do not.
No.
Well,
no TJ Coin, just TJ wanting more people from my world and everywhere to get more involved in these technologies. And in the future, which it starts here in a bank.
In a bank with anything else, the irony of that. Everybody, round of applause for TJ Miller joining us today.
Much. Thanks, guys.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, everyone.